I'm out here checking out my plants because that's what I do. I look at my plants all day, every day. But, hey Josiah, hey sweetie. What I wanted to talk to you today about was starting seeds, what I would do differently next year, what I'm going to do differently next year, or this year when I go ahead and start some more, because that's what I'm going to do. But I'm pleased with some of my plants, some not so much. I'm going to talk to you about like what I think I did wrong with some of them, why they're not as good as the other ones, and what's going on with all of that. But let me show you what's going on with our plants, because they are just, overall, I am just pleased. I mean, they're huge. They look really healthy. You can see I have a lot of plants that are smaller like this. So some of them are smaller. The other thing I have to keep reminding myself is I have randomly started seeds. I have randomly stuck seeds in cups that just weren't flourishing, or if things had died, I went ahead and replanted in some of those cups. So I don't really know the age of all of them. The ones that I don't plant in my garden that look really good and are big and full and ready to go, I'm going to sell. The ones that aren't quite as big, I'm either going to go ahead and just put in the garden somewhere and see how they do, or I'm going to, hey Jacob, or I'm going to let them get a little bigger and then sell them. But over here, these ones are really, really big. I mean, they're like, some of these are 12 inches tall. They are all absolutely ready to go in the ground. My peppers, look, some of them are really doing good too. They finally have started really coming to life over here. So they're ready to go in the ground. We really have, we're right at that time where we have about a week until we're 100% safe. I'm looking at the forecast and none of our lows are gonna be low enough to hurt the seedlings, putting them in the ground, transplanting them. Y'all, I just kicked my ankle against the cinder block. I tried to play it off for a second like nothing happened, but it's one of those things that's like, oh no, that really actually hurts. Okay, anyway, as I was saying, we could probably safely put them in the ground right now. You got wet. Oh my goodness, Emma. Emma put water on him. Y'all are silly. But it's like, one year we did that. We looked at the forecast and we thought everything was all in the clear. We put everything in the ground and it frosted. We covered them and the temperatures dropped. They covered them. Most of them survived, but we lost quite a few. About half of what we had that year we lost. And I just don't want to do that again. I was checking. I couldn't remember if I watered those. I was checking the soil. So I just watered everything. You've just seen that little bit of video where I watered everything. Yesterday we were gone all day and it was gonna be iffy with the weather and we were gonna get home really late. We went to a homesteaders YouTubers meetup in North Carolina, which was really awesome. We got to meet Justin and Rebecca Rhodes and Megan Ben Holler and Art and Bree and a few other people, the Highway Homestead, Ken Folk Homestead, the Wright Homestead, Mama Mitzi. I didn't actually get to talk to her, but she was there. Farm Life Outfitters. Oh goodness, you all right? Whoa, he just knocked the wheelbarrow over. It's fine. Farm Life Outfitters, again, I didn't get to talk to them. There were so many people I didn't actually get to talk to, some of the people, but anyway, that's totally beside the point. So all that to say, we put all the plants, actually put them in the barn instead of the greenhouse, because we knew if they were in the greenhouse they would just cook. So we put them in the barn. So we had watered them, put them in the barn, but they were in the shade. So we wanted to get them out today in the sun because it's gonna be really nice today. But the soil was pretty dry in a lot of them. Nothing looked like it was hurting too bad. There were a couple that were a little droopy, but everything looks fine. So, because I was really worried that they were gonna be underwatered. But anyway, but yeah, I'm gonna get back to you and let you know. I'm gonna sit down here in a second and let you know what I would do differently starting seeds going forward, because there are some things I would do differently. Okay, I have moved into the greenhouse because it was really windy out there, so I was having a hard time. I'm not sure about the audio quality on the video. I mean, I have a wind muff on the camera, but sometimes it doesn't. It's so windy, it doesn't work all the time. And you get a lot of noise. It's hard to hear me talking. I will say that it is baking in here. I am like super hot, so I don't know how long I'm gonna last in here, but I'll talk to you for a minute here if I need to. I'll move back outside where it's cooler. Anyway, so I started all of my seeds in solo cups. I've done that before and it's worked well, but I've always been a lot later starting, so my seedlings were probably like 5 or 6 inches when we put them in the ground. they weren't 10 and 12 inches. These are like the strongest, hardiest, biggest, best seedlings I've ever had. I am like thrilled and excited with them. I just can't, like, they hold so much potential. I think about like all the tomatoes we're gonna get and I'm just like, I'm beside myself. So with that being said, there's pros and cons to starting in the cups. I think that if I were to use solo cups to start them, I would start with the soil only filled about half full. I did that in some of them. I really meant to do that with all of them so that as the plants grew up, I could just put dirt in on them. But some of them we filled up too much, so then it was more, we had to actually like pull them out and then replant them into the same cup, just deeper. And that's a lot of moving around of the transplants that I really would rather not have done. So that's something I would have done would do differently in the solo cups. Okay, I told you I wouldn't last long in that greenhouse. It was like sweltering. It's probably 200 degrees in there. I'm like, the breeze is nice. It's windy for the camera, but it's too hot in there for me. I am not a plant. It's too hot in there for plants, actually. Anyway, so what I've decided is what I'm going to do next time I start seeds is I'm going to start in these cells, either like this or these. These you can get at any kind of garden store, big box store. You can get them on Amazon. They're just 6 cells per tray. They're kind of really cheap and flimsy. They will last for a couple of plantings. They're not going to last you forever. These were given to me. The guy that we got the greenhouse from, he gave me tons of these. His dad used to start like thousands of plants. He sold them. It's crazy. So these have big holes in the bottom. I like that. They go into a solid tray. A bunch of them fit in it, and you can just bottom water. So I'm going to start, and these you can also bottom water because they're vented. I'm going to start seeds in these next time. I'm actually going to start my peppers, and I'm planning on starting again this year in these, and I'm going to bottom water. That's something else, getting to that. I feel like with these I can control better. I'll put one per cell, and then when they get big enough and they start to get, you know, root bounding to transplant, I will transplant them out into either a bigger pot or into solo cups. It just depends on what my plan is as far as.
For transplanting with these ones, you can just stick your finger up through the hole. Yeah. It's big enough to fit.
See, that's what's really nice about these. When you go to transplant, you just pop them right out. They just come right out. These you kind of have to bend. It works, but you have to bend them more, and they go. That's why they don't last forever, because you kind of mangle them. At least we do. Maybe you don't, but I do. I mangle them. So anyway. I like the idea of being able to then just move them. Tomatoes specifically like to be transplanted most of the time. I mean, some of them don't, but they do really well. They kind of thrive once you transplant something new. They just kind of take off and get bigger. So that's something I do. And then watering. I have really struggled with the watering them in the solo cups. I've only done 1 hole in the bottom of the solo cup. If I use them again, I would do probably 3 holes to give them more drainage, because there has been a fine line between overwatering them and underwatering them. We've done okay. We have lost some to temperature issues in the greenhouse. Back in the beginning when it was still freezing out, the heater got unplugged one night, so we lost quite a few there, about a dozen of them there. And then once it started getting warmer and we got more and I was transplanting them out, the heater was just too close to some of them. One day the greenhouse got left zipped up. I forgot to unzip it before it went out, and so it was like half a day zipped up, and some of them cooked, and that dried some of them out. We watered them. Most of them came back. I lost a few. So there's just that issue, is just being more, paying more attention to making sure the heater or the cooler, the heater is still on, not getting unplugged, and we're unzipping it or bringing them outside so they don't heat up and cook in there. This is the small greenhouse we have that we're working with. It's a lot harder to control the temperature in there. Once we can get our big greenhouse set up, our high tunnel greenhouse, for those of you who haven't been following us and don't know, we just recently got an amazing deal on a 21 by 42 foot high tunnel greenhouse, commercial grade. And we don't have it up yet. We got to get the proper. Emma is wiggling her eyebrows from behind the camera. She's really excited about it, like me. We don't have the right plastic for it, and we were going to set it up here and just make it 24 foot long, because you can set up in sections, 24 by 21, but to order the plastic is a big investment, and then whenever we get to a permanent place where we're going to set up permanently, we're going to do it full size, and we'd have to repurchase plastic. So we decided that we would be better off, because we're so late into the seed starting season, it would just be no sense in setting it this year. We can figure out by next year what we're doing. You know, we may still be here, and then we can set it up here with whatever size we decide to do and get the plastic. But ideally, we can set it up permanently somewhere And we'll talk about, we have a lot of goals and dreams for that as far as year-round gardening, but we have the vent fan. In a larger high tunnel, it's easier to set up with the fan and heat and all of that and control the temperature when you actually, but with the little greenhouse like this, there's not a whole lot you can do. So just working on a better control of the environment the plants are in. So I would put, and again in the solo cups, I'd put more drainage holes so they can drain. I would probably try to put more of them in trays so we could bottom water. The other thing I want to get to, which is vitally important, is your starting mix. We have used our own, made our own, you know, mixing just the really fine potting soil or fine topsoil type. You know, we always buy organic topsoil because you don't know where that's come. If it's just you know, non-organic. I mean, if that's, I'm not telling you what you should do. If you feel comfortable using non-organic soil, then go for it. I'm an advocate of informed decisions. You look into it, do what you want to do, but for us personally, we don't want to risk having any kind of chemical exposure to our plants. And so we get organic topsoil, organic potting soil, and we'll add vermiculite and some peat moss to it sometimes. So you really want a very light and fluffy mixture because your seedlings are so delicate, the roots are delicate, you want them to really be able to spread out in there and get deep roots in their pots. Some mistakes we've made, and that's why some of my plants that are struggling a little bit to grow, when we ran out of potting mix, we went to the store and we really quickly grabbed a bag of what we thought was potting mix, and when we got home we realized that it was a garden bed mix. So it was not made specifically, really, it was really heavy compared to the other light fluffy soil, and we know that definitely the plants that started in that did not do as well. They really struggled to grow, and they're still a little stunted. I feel like when they're transplanted again or they're put in the ground, they're going to really take off because they're all still healthy plants, but they're definitely, I mean, you're talking like 2 or 3 inch plants compared to the ones that were planted around the same time that are, you know, 6 to 10 inches. So that's a big, huge thing for making sure that you're consistent with your potting mix. It was kind of a good experiment and a good lesson and a good way to see right up front, you know, personally, how it affected the plants. Another thing that we haven't really paid a whole lot of attention to is as they're growing and getting bigger, because they are outgrowing the cups, is fertilizer. In the past, I've always just started the soil mix, the starting mix, and I've transplanted in time where I didn't really have to worry about fertilizing them, and I've noticed that my bigger plants were looking really, really peaked, and I was like, oh no, I realized they're running out of nutrients. That soil only has so much nutrients available, and the roots had pulled everything out. So I was trying to decide what to do, if I was going to mix up a, you know, water fertilizer mix or what we were going to do. I know you can use fish emulsion and things like that. So we were like, what are we going to do? Well, we had all that compost. If you watch our video, we scraped the compost out of the barn. We went ahead and added top dressed all of the tomatoes in the compost, and the tomatoes that were large, we went ahead and pulled them out and planted them deeper in the cup with the compost. And so since we did that, they have really perked up and shot up because of just getting fed. I mean, if you don't eat, you're not going to grow, right? You're not going to have the energy and nutrients you need to thrive. So we were basically giving what they need. It was something that I had never really put a lot of thought into at the potted seedling stage because I never needed to. It was always focused on when we transplant, you know, making sure our garden beds were really rich in soil. So that was one of the big things. So namely, I'm going to start in smaller trays with better drainage, bottom water, and make sure everything that I use is actual potting or starting mix, starting soil, and not just like a garden bed mix, because it's not what these plants need, the seedlings need. Also, I always just kind of do my seeds all at the same time. I do my peppers and my tomatoes at the same time, and I really need to start my peppers at least a good 2 weeks, if not 4 weeks before my tomatoes, because they're always lacking way behind, and I'm like so focused on my tomatoes because I love peppers and tomatoes, but tomatoes are just like, there's something about tomatoes that are tomato plants that are like intoxicating to me. I don't know. I know that there's other people out there like me, and I'm not the only one, so I don't feel like a weirdo saying that. Specifically my daughter, Emma, she's just as obsessed with tomato plants as I am. We love peppers too, and once we realized, oh no, all the tomatoes are huge and the peppers are looking sad, then we're like trying to, you know, get them going better and fertilizing them. But I will definitely need to start my peppers. I need to plan. I'm not a planner, you know that. If you know me, you know I'm not a planner. I need to plan better and keep track of what I've actually planted. but I need to plan and go ahead and start my peppers earlier, get them going. Peppers also don't germinate as well as tomatoes. In my experience, I don't know. It feels like with peppers, they're either like boom, you got tons, or they really just don't do well at all. And so our germination this year was mediocre with some of them. Some of them really took off, specific ones. And we're getting more pepper seeds for what was mediocre. I'm going to get more. I'm going to go ahead and start them. It's really late to start them, but we have a long growing season, so we're not going to get frost until mid to late October. So we should have plenty of time to grow them. You know, even if we only get a few off of each plant, you know, a few harvests, it'll be okay because they're usually prolific and heavy with fruit by the end of the season. So we're going to do that, and that way I know too I can plant a bunch of peppers, and then if my germination is only like 50%, well, I know I can go ahead and replant, and I still have plenty of time to get a lot of harvest. That's one thing I'm really thankful for being here. We're in Zone 7A in Virginia. We have a really long growing season. We can plant early May. The 1st of May, we're safe to plant in the ground and start seeds, and then, like I said, it doesn't frost till late October. So we have a long, and the temperature of the climate is conducive to everything growing. Like our tomatoes will just produce all through the summer. I know when you get further south, like in Florida, we had a terrible time. We never could get our tomatoes to produce because we would start them later than we needed to, and then by the time they would start flowering to produce, the flowers would fall off because it was too hot and humid. So when you're farther south, you have 2 short seasons. You got to get in the spring where you get, and then you can do some more in the fall, but timing has to be just right, and we never could get our timing right in Florida to get good harvests on anything. But and then when you go further north, you only have, you know, your frosts are a lot sooner, and your planting out is a lot later, so you have to get it right for that window. So we're really blessed here to have this very forgiving season where you can make errors and you can make up for it still later on if you need to. Anyway, that's pretty much it. You know, I'll talk more about how we transplant and what we do when we put them in the ground, how we're going to trellis them and all that in upcoming videos as we do that in the next week or so. But I just wanted to come in and tell you, look, these are the ways that I've made mistakes. Please don't make the same mistakes I've made. And none of the mistakes I've made, well, we've lost a few plants, but none of them have been catastrophic. We haven't just lost a whole lot of plants, you know, I haven't killed them, but it's just things that I feel like I can improve on. And that's the whole thing with homesteading. You're learning through the experience, and you're always looking for ways to improve on what you're doing. And in anything in life, not just homesteading, you know, anything that you put your efforts to, you should always want to excel in and improve on. You know, if you ever get to the place where you've perfected something, you know, if you perfected tomato growing, then that's awesome. Share all of your tips with me, and if it's something that works perfectly for you and it's right and you're doing it right, keep doing what you're doing. You know, once you hit that sweet spot, I mean, we can always learn more and we can always try things out, but if we've hit a place where something we're doing is just right and we know it's going to work exactly the way that we're doing it, it's going to keep working, keep doing it that way. Just experiment, play around with a few other plants if you have some other ideas, but keep doing what you're doing if it's working. But just always try to expand your knowledge on something, and learning and gleaning from others. I love to watch videos of other people on tomatoes and all kinds of homesteading stuff, but I always learn something new to try. That's really interesting to me, you know. So anyway, I hope you are having a wonderful spring and your tomato plants are looking awesome.